Hi everyone, my name is Saida Kosri Namdar. You all can call me Kosar. So I'll be talking about ways where you can level up your Python code reviews to get to ship it faster. So for some background, I am a software engineer at LinkedIn where I'm focused on building infrastructure automation, which helps keep the site up. So yeah, let's get started. So I'll be talking about three main areas. The first one being how you can automate parts of your code review. Second, how you can create a great pull request. And third, how to give and receive effective feedback. So what is code review? So just for some context, it's basically, let's say you have a repository which has your code in it and you want to create a new feature. So then what you're going to go ahead and do is create a new pull request, get that code reviewed by your peers, get some feedback on it, and once it's all approved, you're going to get a ship it so that you can then merge to the main repository. So understanding that this is a process, why do we even want to go through the hassle of a code review? Actually, there are many benefits to it. And these are the three main benefits that I really like. And the first one being, it helps find bugs early on. So we do the best we can to identify bugs on our own, but it definitely helps to have the second, third pair of eyes take a look at it as well. The second one being, it helps you to teach and share knowledge. So not only as an author of the review, but also as a reviewer, you can learn from each other. You can learn from the way someone designed something, maybe something's more Pythonic, things like that. And the third one, which is the main benefit, is it helps to, at least for me, it helps to maintain consistent code. And maintaining high code quality is really important for teams because it helps reduce tech debt. So I found this funny little cartoon here where basically tech debt, if you're not familiar with that term, it's when teams, in the interest of, let's say, maybe time, they have to ship poor quality code, like things like that, right? And so it's inevitable as part of teams, but trying to maintain high quality code from the upfront, doing code reviews will minimize tech debt and will make that process of dealing with code more fun. So let's talk about how you can automate parts of your code review. So let's just say that you have this chaotic code where you want to pick your lunch, right? And the spacing is weird. It's like not formatted correctly, or it's formatting really off, and it's not nice to look at. So let's just say you submit this for review. You might get a comment which says, fix the formatting, it looks off. Okay, how do you fix it? And let's just say you have your opinions, the reviewer has their opinions, other reviewers have their opinions. It's going to be a mess if there's wasted cycles going back and forth about code style and format if there isn't structure in place. So what's going to help give structure in place? It's going to be using a style guide as a foundation. So starting off with you can start off with PEP 8, which is a style guide used within the Python community. It helps to maintain consistent styling for the team, and the teams need to agree on the style guide. So some companies have their own style guides. Essentially, it's a reference point and something where you would start off with. So this is great, but I think we can agree it can be kind of overwhelming sometimes to have to refer to pages on pages of a style guide when we wish there was some automation or tooling that could identify styling issues for us. And we have a solution in Python, Flake 8. So the Flake 8, this is a wrapper which checks for PEP 8 compliance against various Python linting tools. And this runs all tools in a single command line. In a single command, it displays warnings per file. So let me give you an example of what would happen when you run it on the code snippet. So when you run Flake 8 against the code snippet, you're going to see that you get a bunch of different warnings. You'll notice that the warnings starting with F and E is because the source is different. So F is coming from PyFlake, so it's more on the verification. E is coming from PyCodeStyle, so around the styling. And let's just take this to the next level. Let's just say you have code which is hundreds of Flake 8 errors that are related to the E, so related to styling. I wish there was a way that this formatting could be automatically fixed for us. And there's a solution to that. So you can use automatic code formatters. The one that I really like is using Black, which helps to auto-format code to make code review more efficient. One thing to note that Black is a strict subset of PEP 8, which means that there are some rules in PEP 8 and Black that they differ on. One simple example is line length. So in PEP 8, the default line length is 79 characters, and Black is 8. Example. And you just apply Black on the code on that script that we just wrote. It reformats it, and then you can see how it's better formatted. It's much easier to look at. And what I want to call out is you'll notice that sandwich is actually misspelled. And this is just like maybe a silly or a small example where you might overlook things when the formatting is off, but it's definitely important to keep in mind. When formatting is consistent, you can pay attention to design and bigger things about the code instead of like the space is off or things like that. So we got to fix that typo. Isort is another tool which is really helpful to help sort imports. And in this case, isort sorts it by specific sections. So standard library imports at the top, then third-party imports, and then your own project imports. Of course, this import order can be configurable in the isort config as well. What this does is that it helps to improve import readability. You can easily find them, update them. And so a simple example would be for our code snippet. It actually ended up reordering it so that random is now above time. So in this case, it's alphabetical. So this is great, but how can you integrate it into your current workflow? I mean, it's kind of an overhead to think about applying this tool manually every single time. Sometimes you might forget, how can we make sure that for every single commit that these tools are being run, and that way we can have more consistent code being pushed out and actually being created for the pull request. So for that, you're going to want to use the pre-commit framework. So this framework manages installation and execution of each hook. So it's automatically applied for every commit. So what this does is that it enforces style consistency before code is committed to the repository. So this is a sample pre-commit YAML file. You'll notice that I put black first, then you want to run isort and then flake 8. Of course, you can change the import order yourself, but this is one that I suggest. This way, black will take care of formatting, isort will take care of ordering imports. Flake 8 will, of course, run the verification. So this is a simple file. So to run pre-commit, you add the file you want to add to Git, you want to commit it. Then you'll notice that the black 8 hook fails, so then it reformats it. You'll notice that isort passes, but flake 8 fails. It fails because we are importing logging but not using it. And so you want to make sure that you remove that import statement. So now you add that file, you commit it again, and now all the hooks pass and you're ready to go ahead and commit it. So that's super helpful. And there's tons of hooks out there. One thing that I also wanted to call out, just taking a few steps back here, is you can also write your own pre-commit hooks. I ended up writing one for our team as well. So if you want to invoke some custom behavior to check against your files, you can definitely do that as well. So let me go back. But yeah, so now code style is now enforced with Python tooling and automation. So that's the tooling aspect of it. And one thing to note is, yes, I did cover the Python specific tooling which we can use, but if you're using other languages, I'm sure there are similar types of tooling available in your languages as well. So definitely do take a look at that as well. So yeah, going back to now submitting a great pull request. So let's just say, excuse me, you have on the next iteration, you want the ability to pick your breakfast, okay? And then so you get to create the pull request around that. And the only content in your pull request is the word update. So just take a second to think about what is wrong with this pull request. So just keeping those thoughts in mind, essentially, it's not putting your best foot forward. When we're adding just a single line, you're first of all not giving enough context for the reviewer. Second of all, it's a bit rushed. And third of all, if you ever need to refer to this PR in the future, just for some context, it's not there. And so to get away from not putting our best foot forward, because we do want to put our best foot forward, this is a sample way of creating a great pull request. So in your code, you're going to want to make sure you add tests. You'll notice in the original PR that we added, there was no test, so make sure you add tests, assuming that code is testable. And then, so in the pull request, you want to make sure you add a clear description. So in this case, I said added functionality to big breakfast items. You want to make sure you add motivation. Why did you introduce the change? Adding testing status where appropriate. And in this case, I also added a section called additional possible improvements, where I called out saying, I see we don't have a dinner picker. Does the team feel that should be added in? And so, yes, this is verbose, but this is important because this way you're being clear to the reviewer what it is that you intend to have them review. And definitely this is just a sample layout. There's definitely other ways, other things you can add to your pull request submission. So this is a good foundation. So let's just say that, okay, you submitted this PR. What kind of comments might you get? So let's just say you get these two types of comments. They're a bit more on the negative side. Just take a look. You're going to see that we don't need picking breakfast functionality. And you're going to see someone saying, I don't remember us agreeing to have burger as an option. Remove it. Okay. I'm going to dive into why it's negative and how to fix it in the following section. But for now, let's just say, okay, you're an author of the review. How do you address this in a productive manner? What you shouldn't do is be really defensive and say, yeah, we need it, and then that's it. And the bottom one, just fight back, but in an aggressive tone. We should try to maintain a collaborative, respectful tone so that it's a more productive review. So for the top one, so you could respond saying, I got feedback from multiple customers to include this option. I feel it helps for better user experience if they can pick their own 2 meals with a single script. How does that sound to you? As you can see from the tone, it's definitely not aggressive. And what this comment does is that it helps explain, why you added that functionality. It helps get their feedback. And this makes it more inclusive instead of just being single-sided. This also opens it up for discussion. Instead of just saying, yeah, we need it, this is why. So just an idea out there. Asking questions helps to drive that point home as well. So for the second one, so when the reviewer says, to remove that option, you could respond saying, I believe we had discussed to have this option in our team meeting, but I don't see the decision listed in the team meeting notes. Can we sync up to confirm the options then? Again, what this does is that, sure, even if you don't agree with the reviewer's decision, just having a discussion within the pull request itself in the comments, either offline messaging, in person, will help as well. So once you have a decision, go ahead and track the results of the decision within the pull request so that, like I said, it's tracked. And if you ever need to come back to it in the future, it's there as well. And one thing to note is you'll notice the use of we. So it's definitely more inviting, an inviting word to use as well. So I created a list of 8 items that I like to think about every time I create a pull request. And so I'll list them over here. So the first one is ensure that you've looked over the code before creating the pull request as if you're a reviewer to catch any issues. This has helped me in so many ways because definitely when starting out, I would just submit and be done. But then I realized, oh, wait, if I review my own code before submitting, I can then catch things that the reviewer would have caught. So this has been really helpful for me. And I'm sure a lot of you can get good takeaways with that as well. And that helps speed the cycle up and make it more efficient so you can get to ship it faster. Second, ensure that your code is properly formatted to have a consistent slate. Just like we talked about earlier, you can use a pre-commit framework to integrate with auto formatters and verification tools. So that way, every code review that's being done is being done with the same foundation. Number 3, provide a clear summary of the change in the title and description and add tests where appropriate. And 4 adds to it, basically saying that to add context and motivation for the change with supporting documentation where needed. Let's just say, for example, you decide to introduce a new workflow for a certain code path, and you documented that workflow in the wiki. What would be helpful is if you can link that wiki within your pull request so that the reviewers have some context, maybe a visual representation of what it is that you want to achieve. So things like that. Number 5, identify concerns around design or implementation that you want feedback on. So this isn't something that necessarily needs to be done in every single review. It's just, for example, in the one that I posted earlier, if you notice that there might be an issue, just call it out. And that way you can get feedback on it. Number 6, keep changes as small as possible within a single PR. So let's just say you submit a PR with like hundreds of lines of code, but there's like 5 different functionalities that are being tweaked. Not only does it make for a more difficult review, it's hard to manage. Maybe the reviewer's like one area but not the other area, and things get all mangled up. So what we want to do is, if we can, isolate a single pull request to a single problem. That way it becomes more manageable for both the reviewer and the author to collaborate on it as well. And for number 6, it helps to reduce unintended side effects of adding extra complex code. So number 7, tag specific people that you'd like to review in the PR. So it depends on the team, right? Sometimes teams have their entire team review. Sometimes it's just like a sub team. So if you want some specific people to take a look at it, go ahead and tag them as well. And number 8, proofread the PR before submitting just to make sure it makes sense, and then go ahead and click submit. So I also listed 4 things that we should aim to be as an author and aim to do. So you definitely want to make sure that you acknowledge every review comment, either by liking it, writing the word "ack," just responding to it, so that reviewers know that you saw it and that you know that you addressed it. If you're feeling overwhelmed with the comments, you can also try to reach out to the reviewer to get more context and clarity around it. And what I found is when I was getting certain types of patterns of review for my code, I identified which patterns that I needed to improve on, and then I worked towards that. So try to identify that for your work as well. Number 3, if the reviewers cannot come to a consensus on the change, try to create a meeting if you can to discuss the change and then document the results within the PR. So not only if the reviewers can't come to a decision, if you as an author and the reviewer cannot come to a decision, like I emphasized earlier, track the results in the PR for reference. And number 4, most importantly, try to embrace reviews as a learning opportunity. So we're all going to get critical reviews and we're all going to give critical reviews, but it's all about how you can respond to them and grow from them is what really matters. Awesome. Okay, so we talked about how you can be a great author, how you can submit a great pull request. Now let's jump to how can you submit a great review. So what do you think of when you think of a code reviewer? Do any of these come to mind? Maybe they're a supervillain, they're a robot, they're a face palmer. Definitely a lot of memes around being a face palmer. So we shouldn't really try to think of a code reviewer as a bad person or a robot. But face palmer is okay. Okay, maybe not. Maybe we shouldn't think of them as a face palmer, but just wanted to throw it in there. So how we should perceive a reviewer is a thinker. They're analyzing your code, and hopefully in a constructive manner. Technologist, identifying what technology you're using, how you can build upon that, how you can improve things. As a teacher, they could be teaching you as an author, this is maybe a better way to do it. But I encourage us to add these 2 more ways we should perceive a reviewer, as a student and as human. So as a student, because as a reviewer, you're also learning from the author. You're also learning from other reviewers as well. And as a human, because I know we might tend to maybe take things personally or maybe be more critical, but essentially reviewers and authors are human. And so if we can emphasize that that reviewers are human, we should be doing code reviews with respect so that they're collaborative. So this was a negative review, which I had mentioned earlier, and now we'll analyze it. Why is it negative? Unless it was really obvious, which we should hopefully see that it is here. So for this first comment, we don't need picking breakfast functionality, ... So this comment sounds passive aggressive, and it doesn't explain why that functionality isn't needed. For the second one, again, the reviewer says, I don't remember us agreeing to have burger as an option, remove it. So sure, even if burger was not an agreed upon option, the fact is that the phrasing is a bit harsh. And what if the reviewer is wrong? But I do want to emphasize that in reviews and in general communication, it is still important to be direct. So it's kind of like a trade-off, right? I think what I'm trying to call out here is that it is important to be direct, but we shouldn't be harsh if we can avoid it. And what actually would have been more productive for this comment would have been if this comment referred to some documentation or meeting notes, which helps solidify the point as well. So let's take the negative review and turn it positive. So negative, we don't need picking breakfast functionality. Positive, why was this breakfast change introduced? What asking a question does is that it opens it up for discussion. So it could be maybe the reviewer, you don't have context, or you're sure it wasn't needing to be introduced, but you want to get the author's feedback, why was it introduced? So that is a more collaborative way of phrasing that top part. For the bottom part, just previously, I don't remember us agreeing to have it as an option, remove it. A more positive way of phrasing this would be, since I don't remember burger being an agreed upon option, can you please point me towards documentation which lists that option? We should make sure that all lunch options are verified from our team discussion so that we're all on the same page. You'll notice multiple things here. First of all, if you're not sure about something, definitely I emphasize ask for documentation. Next, explaining the why behind something also helps the submitter and other reviewers get more context around that. As I said, we should be on the same page. And using the word we is highly encouraged because it's more collaborative. So instead of, if we were to say, you should make sure all lunch options are verified, saying the word we should make sure is more inviting and a better word to use in this case. And remember to give positive feedback too. So let's just say that someone wrote something that's nice and Pythonic, call it out. They have nice design, elegant code, call it out. In this case, the reviewer wrote, great use of F strings here and gave a reference as well. So what this does is that not only does it make the author feel good and positive, oh, I did something great, it helps the other reviewers understand, oh, that's a good example to use, like good example of use of F strings here, so now I can refer to that as well. So this is a code reviewer checklist. These are the high-level items that I like to keep in mind when performing my reviews. Definitely, there's so many other things that we can add to it, but I think this is a really great starting point. So the first one, ensure you understand context of the change. So just simply approving what that looks good to me without having context can have unfortunate side effects and consequences. And essentially, it's not acting with ownership. If you honestly don't understand the change, then just either ask them to clarify or point the review towards someone who does have more context. So that way, you're acting with ownership and understand what it is that you're actually reviewing. And number two helps give some examples around what questions you can ask to get content of the change. Number three, try to save nitpicks until after you've addressed the architecture and design of the submitted code. So basically, let's just say, for example, you want to fix the way a debugger statement is phrased. I mean, things like that, right? I mean, it depends on the team. Essentially, the goal is to identify big, higher level things first. And once that's addressed, then you can address the nitpicks. You can even, for your comments, write the word NIT : and then the nitpick comment, just so it's extra clear. And number four, you can sometimes phrase suggestions as questions to open discussion. What I like about this is that it also helps give the code submitter, the code author, more ownership of the change. For example, you can suggest, let's say you see a piece of code, you can maybe suggest, for example, can we use context managers here? So what this does is that instead of just saying use context managers, opening it up makes the person look into it and then say, oh, maybe we could use context managers. Number five, don't just gloss over test code. So yes, I mean, there is some trust that we like to have in each other, but we also want to make sure that what you're testing is, it's great if the tests pass, but you want to make sure the test tests what we want it to do, right? So just make sure that it's testing what you expect. Number six, you want to support points of documentation where appropriate. So for example, with the context manager thing that I just said, you could say, could we use context managers here? And then point towards a link to some Python documentation about context managers. Number 7, reread the PR and your comments when we're publishing, just to make sure, like the language is appropriate and you caught things that you wanted to catch. And number 8, remember to sometimes offer positive feedback as well. So the 4 things that I like to aim as a reviewer, and I think that we all should too, is definitely need to provide timely feedback. So done in a constructive manner will help make the review more efficient. And so this depends per team, right? I mean, some teams could be turned around within a few hours, a day, a few days, and it depends on the project too and the scope of it. So just try to find what works for your team. Number 2, try to use more collaborative and empathetic language where possible. It's okay to be direct, since that's important to be efficient, but I emphasize that the language should not be accusatory or degrading. 3, there is a balance between being constructive and overly critical and nitpicky. So try to find the balance for you and the team, as well as the review that's being submitted. And number 4, as I emphasize, embrace reviews as a learning opportunity. You might learn something from the author, from the other reviewers, and that's how you can grow as well. So overall, I hope you've learned ways that you can set your review up for success through using automated Python tooling, through how to submit a pull request, which is involved and gives more context. I hope you've understood that submitters and reviewers are human, so reviews should be done with respect, and I hope you've learned ways where you can incorporate collaborative and empathetic language into your conversations. And so hopefully improving your code review process, making it more efficient, is going to help you get your code approved and shipped it, and to get it shipped faster. Great. Okay, 2 more things. So then resources that I used, and finally, thank you so much for joining my presentation. My slides are listed at the bit.ly link here. I will also paste it in the event chat as well. Feel free to also connect with me on LinkedIn and tweet at me at CodeALatte. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Kausar. The session was awesome. Throughout the session, I think the only comments were that these